Hello, good evening. Today it's, or tonight, it's, what is it, February the 23rd in the year 2012 AD, and this is episode number 12 of the Mobuku Chronicles. And I mentioned last time that this episode would be devoted to talking about the nature of money. But first of all, before I get into that, I gotta relate some information to you. And this is from there's a man by the name of Eric Sprott, Canadian billionaire, who runs the Sprott Asset Management Company in Canada. And he has been a very strong advocate of gold and silver as money. I mean, his major funds that he has available for people to invest in basically concentrate on silver and gold. And he has a report out that came out today which is pertaining to the subject matter at hand. And this is put out by Eric Sprott and a colleague of his at Sprott Asset Management by the name of David Baker. And it is called Unintended Consequences. Now, I am not of the opinion, based on my research, and this research includes a person by the name of Rudolf Steiner, who most people seem to be completely unaware of that he ever existed. And yet Rudolf Steiner is probably one of the greatest teachers that's ever walked the planet. I mean, he's a great, great personality, or individuality. And he lived from 1861 to 1925, and he produced an enormous volume of work which amounts to 450 volumes of both books, about 40 books, and the rest of it is correspondence, letters, and lectures, 6,000 of which he gave during the course of his teaching life. And he brought a tremendous wealth of information drawn from the spiritual world. Now, among the many the knowledge that one can gain, which is of significance to every human being on earth, is the existence of the secret brotherhoods. Now, I've mentioned them before, and I will mention them again, and I will be going into them in some detail later on. But the point I want to make is the secret brotherhoods have, and you can go back to earlier episodes where I discussed this, I don't know, the first 1, 2, or 3, and I urge you to do that. In fact, I urge you, everybody, if this is your first occasion for coming across the Mobuku Chronicles, then it does behoove you to go back, because this is a whole sequence that I'm doing over the course of time to teach everybody the knowledge that is necessary for us to be able to A, emancipate ourselves from the machinations of the secret brotherhoods, and B, to put into place a social arrangement that is equitable for everybody. And this will become, I mean, I'll do this in more detail. But the fact of the matter is, and I mentioned this earlier also in another episode, that the dollar has been the weapon used against humanity to subjugate the vast majority of the human race to the machinations of the secret brotherhoods. But this is not the end. This is a means to the end. Okay, so when it says unintended consequences, these are not unintended consequences from the point of view of the secret brotherhoods, by no means. They're very much intended. However, since very few people probably less than 1/10 of the human population knows of the existence of A, Rudolf Steiner, and B, of the secret brotherhoods, then people seem to get the impression that their minions, or their minions and their agents that are operating in the world of finance and government and banking and media and education and so forth, people seem to think that these people, you know, whether they be the chairman of the Federal Reserve or the President of the United States or the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff or the head of the CIA or the President of the Chancellor of Germany or the President of Israel or whoever. Okay, these people, to a large degree, basically don't have any clue what's going on, if they are not themselves agents of the secret brotherhoods. Now, so to turn to Mr. Sprott and his colleagues' writings, which came out today, 2012 is proving to be the year of the central bank. Now, basically he goes into, what they do is they go into all the policies that have been implemented in order to save the banking system. And the banking system, as I mentioned earlier, is walking dead. It's insolvent, totally. The worldwide banking system is totally insolvent. And all these banks have been propped, as I mentioned last time, by the analogy of taking a corpse and giving it a blood transfusion in the hopes that the corpse will revive. Now, it's not going to happen. However, the perception is not there yet by the mass majority of the people who have bank accounts in, you know, let's say in America, they have bank accounts in, you know, Wells Fargo and Bank of America and J.P. Morgan Chase and Citibank and so forth. They ought to pull their money out and just keep enough in there for their day-to-day running around expenses. They should not keep anything other than maybe $2,000 or $3,000 in your bank account. You can take the rest out and put it into gold and silver right now. Okay? So anyway, so all this is going on to revive, allegedly, the banking system. And I just want to highlight a few things here. Coordinated actions to enhance their capacity, that is the European Central Bank, to provide liquidity support to the global financial system. Long story short, in an effort to avoid total collapse in the European banking system, the U.S. Federal Reserve agreed to offer unlimited U.S. dollar swap agreements with the other central banks. Now the music's a little loud. Gotta turn it down. All right. And unlimited U.S. Now what this means to us as individuals living in the United States is our purchasing power of our dollars going down, which means that everything is going to cost us more. So you have to hedge against that. That's like I've mentioned many times. Got to buy gold and silver. That's the hedge. That's your financial protection, insurance policy against the machinations of the Federal Reserve, which is essentially a private organization, as I've mentioned, which serves the banking, worldwide banking criminal cartel. That's who their masters are. At least their immediate masters. And they do their best. Like today, I just read the Royal Bank of Scotland, which had posted in the last fiscal year a loss of $1.12 billion. They're paying out in bonuses to their banker you know, higher ups, the officers in that bank, $400 million in bonuses. And they lost $1.12 billion. See, that's the kind of thing that's going on. And of course the Royal Bank of Scotland was saved from collapsing by the British government. So it's the same story all over the place. Now, that is one aspect. And these weren't enough to solve the problems, these swap lines. Roughly 3 weeks later, on December the 21st, 2011, the European Central Bank launched the first tranche of its lauded long-term refinancing operation. This is the program where the European Central Bank flooded 523 separate European banks with $489 billion worth of 3-year loans to keep them going through Christmas. Christmas, you know, which is long since passed. So of course they needed more, and it goes on and on. Anyway, the basic thing I want to just point out here is this system is imploding necessarily. And there's nothing anybody can do. So, I mean, the Federal Reserve, all they can do, the central banks, all the central banks are themselves insolvent. Okay, they're all themselves insolvent. So there's no possibility of any backstop anywhere other than printing up more money. And this is what's called currency wars, you know, which James Rickard, he brought out a book called Currency Wars. You know, and I've been listening to him for quite some time. I've stopped listening to him. I don't listen to anybody anymore, you know, very few. Because everybody's just stuck in the same old quagmire of tired, old, worn out, habitual thinking. And it's just a wonderful line from the song by Dylan, you know, called Mississippi. Time is piling up. We're all boxed in. Time is piling up. We're all boxed in. And there's nowhere to escape. The city's just a jungle for games to play. Trapped in the heart of it and trying to get away. That's the situation. This is actually the line. Time is piling up. We struggle and we scrape. We're all boxed in, and there's nowhere to escape. City's just a jungle for games to play, trapped in the heart of it, and trying to get away. Alright, that sums the whole situation up. Bob Dylan has got a lot of insight into this stuff. Whether it's conscious or unconscious, I have no idea. But from my perspective, he certainly does. And anyway, what this all boils down to is, what is the nature of money? Because most people don't seem to have any idea. Certainly the population, world population, has no clue what money is. And it's not surprising, since we've never been taught anything about it. And the very good reason we've never been taught anything about it is because it's very important for the powers that be, the criminal elite, and the secret brotherhoods who are behind them, to keep us in the dark as to the nature of money. So I did some research over the past decade or so, and before I get into that, we have to talk about how the events taking place in the world of human beings, well, in the world of nature, plants, animals, wind and rain, and so forth, are all the manifestations of the activity of spiritual beings of one kind or another. Now, we are spiritual beings ourselves, and I mentioned that before. So we're both cosmic beings as well as earthly beings. And we need to pay attention to the fact that we are cosmic beings, spiritual beings. And so therefore we have to take into account the activity of the spiritual beings that border on this world, and that